Have you ever noticed what people talk about when they know time is running out? Not the things they owned, not the positions they held, not the applause they once chased. No, when the final chapters of life unfold, a different truth rises to the surface, quiet but undeniable. It is the truth of the heart. What could have been, what should have been, what was held back too long. There's no more pretending at that stage, no more performance, only raw honesty, and often a haunting sense of something left unfinished. Perhaps you've heard it said that regret is just part of life, that it's natural, even necessary. But is that really true? Or is regret the echo of a life that drifted too far from what truly matters? Is it the voice of the soul reminding us that there was a path we didn't take, not because it wasn't available, but because we didn't feel brave enough to walk it? Some people argue that regret teaches us that even if it comes too late, it still has the power to wake us up. But others, especially in their final days, see regret not as a lesson but as a burden, one they carry with quiet sorrow, a weight that cannot be returned. What they would give to go back and live differently, to speak, to love, to rest, to forgive, to laugh more freely. But time doesn't rewind. Still, there is something sacred in these regrets, something we often overlook. Beneath the sorrow lies a deeper wisdom, one that echoes the ancient teachings of the Buddha. In every regret is a spiritual invitation, not just to look back, but to awaken now. Because the truth is, regret doesn't have to be a sentence. It can be a signpost, a mirror, a second chance, if we are willing to listen while we still have time. This reflection is not meant to bring sadness but clarity, because in understanding the regrets of the dying, we are offered a rare and precious gift, the chance to live more fully now, with our eyes wide open and our hearts unafraid. And so we begin with the first whisper so many take with them to the end of life, the longing to have lived, not the life expected of them, but the life that was truly their own. 1. I wish I'd had the courage to live true to myself. It's such a quiet regret, isn't it? Not loud or dramatic, just a soft ache that lingers in the soul. The kind that creeps in when the noise of the world finally fades, and all that remains is your own heartbeat, and the question, did I live my truth, or did I only play a role? This regret, more than any other, is often whispered by those nearing the end. It's not that they didn't try to be good. They were kind, responsible, dutiful. But somewhere along the way, the voice inside them was hushed, not out of malice, but out of fear. Fear of disappointing others, of being misunderstood, of standing out when all they wanted was to belong. In Buddhist teaching, this echoes the path of right intention, one of the Noble Eightfold Path's most subtle yet profound truths. Right intention isn't about striving for perfection. It's about choosing the quiet alignment between your inner world and outer actions. It's about living honestly, not just with others, but with yourself. There's a story I often recall of an elderly monk named Tenzin. Before he took vows, he had everything society praises, a thriving business, a luxurious home, and the admiration of many. But something inside him, something small but persistent, never settled. It was as if his soul kept tugging at his sleeve, asking, "Is this truly you?" For years, he silenced that voice, told himself he was just being ungrateful, that life was fine, good, even. But then one evening, he visited a quiet temple on a mountain path. Nothing dramatic happened, just a moment of stillness, a flickering candle, the sound of wind chimes. And in that silence, he wept, not because he was sad, but because he finally felt. 2 years later, he had given it all away. The house, the titles, the life built on everyone else's dreams, and began again. Not to escape, but to return to himself. Of course, not everyone becomes a monk. That's not the point. The lesson is this: the truest version of your life won't come from outside. It won't come from what others expect or what the world applauds. It rises from within, quiet, persistent, and achingly honest. Too often, we wear masks for so long, we forget we're wearing them. We smile at gatherings when we want to be alone. We say yes when our whole body is screaming no. We mold ourselves into shapes that please others and slowly lose the shape of our own soul. But here's the truth: it's never too late. Never too late to return to your truth. Even in your 70s, even on your deathbed, even now. Buddhism doesn't shame the past. It welcomes the moment you finally see. And when you do, when you choose to listen, to realign, to live from your own inner compass, that's when peace begins to bloom. So ask yourself, gently, whose life am I really living? And if the answer feels heavy, don't run from it. Bow to it. It's not too late to come home to yourself. 2. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. This regret is so heartbreakingly human and so achingly familiar. You can almost hear the sigh in someone's voice when they say it. It's not just about the long hours or the overtime shifts. No, this runs deeper. It's about all the moments that slipped through their fingers while they were busy chasing something they were told mattered. Many older people, especially men from earlier generations, carry this regret like a hidden weight. They believed, no, they knew that being a good provider meant working hard. That love was shown through paychecks, not presents, so they worked and worked and worked. Until one day, they looked around and realized they had missed entire seasons of life. The Buddhist path invites us to examine this through the lens of mindfulness, to look not just at what we do, but why we do it and how it feels in our body, mind, and heart. In Buddhism, there is no virtue in busyness for the sake of busyness. If your work feeds your family but starves your soul, something is out of balance. If your days are filled with noise but your heart remains empty, no amount of income can compensate for what's been lost. Let me tell you a story. There was once a grandfather named Ray, a man whose hands were worn from years in the factory, who took every overtime shift offered. He was never home for dinner, and when he was, he'd often be too tired to talk. His daughter, Lucy, used to wait by the window each night, just hoping to catch his eyes. She'd draw him pictures, press them into his calloused palms. He'd smile, kiss her forehead, then fall asleep in the chair. Years later, in a quiet hospice room, Ray broke down, not from fear of dying, but from the realization that he didn't know his daughter's favorite color or what she wanted to be when she grew up. He had missed her childhood, chasing the security he thought would protect her, but what she had wanted was him. In Buddhist teachings, there's a parable of a farmer who once worked tirelessly to grow more, earn more, acquire more. But one day, a sudden storm wiped away his crops. Sitting beside the ruins, he saw a sparrow bathing in a puddle, utterly content. In that moment, he realized he had spent his whole life preparing for a future that never came, while the present had quietly slipped away. Mindful living doesn't mean rejecting ambition or responsibility. It means seeing clearly what you're giving and what you're giving up. It asks, what are you sacrificing, and is it worth it? It also teaches us that stillness is not laziness. Pausing to be present with your grandchildren, watching the rain fall, making tea slowly, these are not wasted moments. These are the richest parts of a life well lived. In your later years, it becomes clear work will never hold your hand when you're sick. Your title will not weep at your funeral. Your job won't sit beside you and say, "Thank you for being there." But your children might. Your partner might. Your friends, if you've made time to keep them, might. So if you're still racing through your days, ask yourself gently, what am I running toward? And what am I running from? In the end, no one regrets having earned one less dollar, but they do regret the birthdays missed, the stories untold, the hands they could have held, but didn't. In Buddhist practice, to be mindful is to honor the fleeting nature of all things. Work, yes. Contribute, of course, but do not forget to live, because no one lies on their deathbed wishing they'd spent more time at the office. 3. I wish I had expressed my feelings. This regret is like a whisper that echoes through the chambers of a heart left unspoken. Not dramatic, not loud, just a deep, quiet ache. The realization that too much was held back. That love was felt but never said. That anger, fear, sorrow, and even forgiveness remained locked away, unshared, unseen. And it hurts most not because it was wrong, but because it was true, and yet never lived out loud. So many people, especially those from generations taught to keep it in, stay strong, or not make a fuss, reach the end of life carrying a heavy silence inside them. They wanted to tell their father they were proud. They wanted to tell their sister they were sorry. They wanted to say, "I love you," without conditions, but they didn't. And time, with all its unstoppable grace, simply ran out. In Buddhist philosophy, there's a deep teaching around right speech. Not just the words we say, but the intention behind them. Words can hurt or heal. They can push away or pull close. And sometimes, the deepest suffering comes not from the words spoken, but from those left unsaid. There's a story that lingers in my heart. A woman named Evelyn, 84 years old, silver-haired, elegant, and alone. She had a brother, Michael. They were close once. As children, they were inseparable, building forts out of blankets and racing through the fields. But in their 20s, something happened. A fight, a betrayal. No one remembers now. They stopped speaking. Years passed, decades. Evelyn would often write him letters in her journal, letters she never sent. In them, she forgave him. She asked for his forgiveness. She missed him terribly, but she couldn't bring herself to break the silence. Too much time had passed, she thought. He probably doesn't even want to hear from me. But one day, she received a call. Michael had passed, quietly, unexpectedly, and in that moment, the unsaid became unbearable. Tears flowed for the years lost, but more than that, for the words that never reached him. The "I miss you," the "I still care." This is the wound that silence leaves behind. In the practice of metta or loving-kindness meditation, Buddhism offers a gentle path for opening the heart. It starts simply, wishing well for oneself, then extending those wishes outward to loved ones, to strangers, even to those who've hurt us. It doesn't demand perfect reconciliation or dramatic conversations, but it invites us to soften, to feel, to mean our intentions deeply, and when we're ready, to let them flow outward in word or deed. Expressing feelings doesn't mean spilling everything all at once. It can begin with a simple truth. I care about you. I forgive you. That hurt me. Thank you. I love you. Words like these don't just connect us to others, they connect us to ourselves. And the older we get, the more we realize emotional honesty is freedom. Holding it in might have kept the peace on the surface, but inside, it built walls. And those walls can become prisons if we're not careful. So if you're listening now, and there's something inside you, a truth, a love, an apology. Don't wait. Say it, write it, whisper it, share it. Because the greatest pain is not in what we feel, it's in never letting it be known. In your later years, your words matter more than ever. Not because they must be perfect, but because they are real. And sometimes, the softest "I love you" or "I forgive you" can echo longer than 1,000 speeches. This moment, this breath, might be the last chance to set your heart free. 4. I wish I had stayed in touch with friends. Friendship. Such a simple word, yet it holds entire worlds inside it. Laughter shared under golden sunsets, late-night phone calls when the world felt too heavy, long silences that never needed to be filled. And yet, somewhere along the way, many of us let those sacred bonds quietly drift away, like autumn leaves blown from the trees of our lives. It doesn't happen all at once. It's rarely intentional. Life just gets busy. Work becomes the focus. Families grow. Responsibilities multiply. We tell ourselves, "I'll call them next week. We'll catch up soon." But time is tricky. It slips through the cracks. And before we know it, years have passed, and the people who once knew us best have become distant memories. This regret, so common among those at life's end, isn't just about missing parties or holidays. It's about the sorrow of having lost the people who once made us feel most alive. The ones who knew our dreams before the world told us to shrink them. The ones who saw us not just as parents or professionals or caregivers, but as us. In Buddhism, there is a deeply revered concept called Sangha, the spiritual community. It's one of the 3 jewels, alongside the Buddha and the Dharma. Sangha is not just about monks in robes or temples on mountains. It is the circle of wise companions, kindred souls, the ones who walk the path beside us, lifting us when we stumble and rejoicing when we rise. To have a true friend in life is a rare blessing. To be a true friend is an even greater one. There's a story from the Zen tradition about 2 elderly monks, Brother Hoshin and Brother Toma. Every morning, no matter the weather, no matter their aches and pains, they would meet for tea beneath an old banyan tree. They didn't speak much. Often they just sat, hands wrapped around warm cups, watching the mist roll over the hills. But that time, that presence was sacred. One day, Brother Toma fell ill and could no longer leave his bed. Brother Hoshin came to his side, holding his hand in silence. And just before his friend passed, Brother Toma whispered, "These mornings with you, they were the best part of my life." Friendship is like that. It doesn't need grand gestures or constant communication. It needs presence, a willingness to show up, to remember, to care. In our later years, the ache of lost friendship grows sharper. We realize that while we built careers and raised families, the roots of our oldest relationships quietly withered. And when we look back, it's not the money or achievements we miss, it's the people, the ones who knew us when we were still figuring out who we were. So what can we do now? We can reach out, rebuild, rekindle. A simple letter, a call, even a message that says, "You crossed my mind today, and I miss you." These words can open doors thought long shut, and more importantly, we can nurture the friendships still within reach. We can make time, real, unrushed time, for those we care about. We can create our own modern Sangha, not just of shared beliefs, but of shared hearts. Because at the end of life, it won't be the emails answered or chores completed that stay with us. It will be the long talks on porches, the quiet laughter in old kitchens, the simple comfort of knowing I was not alone. If you still have someone to call, call them. If you've lost touch, reach out. You never know what healing might be waiting on the other end of the line. And if you've already lost someone, Take a moment now to sit in gratitude for what you shared. Let it warm you. Let it remind you that love, in any form, is never wasted. Friendship is not a luxury, it is a lifeline. And in the end, it's one of the few things we wish we'd held on to just a little tighter. 5. I wish I had let myself be happier. Of all the regrets people carry to their final days, this one is often the most surprising and the most piercing. Not because life was especially cruel or unkind, but because joy was there, waiting patiently, and they simply didn't reach for it. They thought they needed permission, or the right circumstances, or to finish all the important things first. They told themselves they'd be happy later, once the children were grown, once the mortgage was paid, once the world stopped spinning so fast. But later is a dangerous myth. And happiness can't be postponed like a bill. It only lives in the now. In Buddhist teachings, this regret speaks to the heart of attachment and grasping, the belief that happiness lies somewhere out there, just beyond reach. We chase it like a mirage in the desert, convinced that one more success, one more possession, one more checkbox on life's to-do list will finally bring peace. But the Dharma reminds us, joy is not something we earn. It's something we allow. There's a beautiful teaching from Thich Nhat Hanh, who said, sometimes your joy is the source of your smile, but sometimes your smile can be the source of your joy. That simple act, choosing to smile, to soften, can awaken happiness, not from anything new, but from what's already here. I once heard the story of a man named Harold, 70 years old, widowed, quiet, spent most of his life as a bookkeeper, neat, punctual, reliable. He had never danced, not once, not even at his wedding. He said he was too stiff, too shy, too serious. Dancing to him was something other people did. But after his wife passed, something shifted. One evening, while watching his granddaughter twirl across the living room in her pink tutu, Harold did something wild. He got up, he took her hands, and he danced. It wasn't graceful, it wasn't coordinated, but it was real. And in that clumsy, beautiful moment, tears filled his eyes, not from sadness, but from the realization, I could have done this all along. He didn't need to wait until retirement, or for approval, or until the grief passed. He could have allowed joy in at any time, and yet, like so many, he had held the door shut out of habit, fear, or the belief that happiness must be earned. Buddhism teaches us that suffering arises when we cling to how things should be, to who we should be, to a future that never arrives. But happiness, true, quiet, unshakable happiness, comes when we release, when we stop trying so hard, when we simply are. And here's the tender truth many elders share. They didn't realize they were allowed to be happy, especially in small ways, to sit in the sun with no agenda, to laugh at something silly, to feel the breeze and let it kiss their face. They thought they had to justify joy. But the Buddha's smile teaches us otherwise. Letting yourself be happy doesn't mean ignoring pain. It doesn't mean pretending everything's perfect. It means understanding that joy and sorrow can exist side by side, like two wings of the same bird. One doesn't cancel the other. In fact, it's often because of our suffering that our joy becomes so rich, so full of depth. So if you find yourself hesitating to laugh, to sing, to dance, to rest, to say yes to what feels light and free, pause. Ask yourself, who told me I needed to wait? You don't, not anymore. Happiness doesn't always arrive like a thunderclap. Sometimes it tiptoes in, with a cup of tea, a good story, a warm blanket, a gentle breath. Let it in, because no one gets to the end of life wishing they'd been more serious. But many, far too many, whisper with regret, "I wish I had let myself be happy while I still had the chance," and the beautiful, redemptive truth, you still do. So here we are, at the end of this quiet journey through the 5 most common regrets of the dying and the timeless Buddhist truths they echo. We began with the longing to live authentically, to walk our path without apology, guided by right intention, not obligation. We heard the sorrow of those who worked endlessly, only to realize they had traded presence for productivity, forgetting that life is made not of paychecks, but of moments. We witnessed the ache of unspoken feelings, the love never voiced, the forgiveness never shared, and saw how compassionate speech could free the heart. We explored the heartbreak of friendships faded too soon, and remembered the sacred role of Sangha, the spiritual family we choose and cherish. And lastly, we touched the tender truth that happiness is something we allow, that the joy we keep postponing may be the very joy we were meant to live all along. If there's one thread running through them all, it is this: regret is not a punishment, it's a mirror, and it's never too late to look into it with kindness and begin again. You are not too old, it is not too late. You are not behind. The breath you are taking right now, this one, is an invitation to return to yourself. So ask yourself, gently without judgment, am I living a life true to my own heart, or only playing a role I was handed? Am I giving time to the things and people that truly matter, or just running on autopilot? Is there someone I need to forgive, or someone who needs to hear what I've kept buried for too long? Have I reached out to the old friends who once knew the music of my laughter? And perhaps the hardest one, have I allowed myself, truly, fully, to be happy? These questions are not meant to shame or overwhelm. They are here to open a door, because what the Buddha teaches, and what the dying remind us with their final words, is this: peace doesn't come from perfection, it comes from presence. Live now, speak now, soften now, love now. Let go of the idea that a better time will come. This is your life. This is your chance. And if this message touched your heart, even just a little, we invite you to stay with us on this journey. Click subscribe to join our growing community here at Quiet Wisdom, where every story, every teaching, and every breath is shared with care, calm, and compassion. And if you know someone, a parent, a friend, a soul, quietly aching to live more fully, share this video with them. Let's remind one another that while life may be fleeting, the wisdom we carry into it can make it infinitely more beautiful. Thank you for watching, and until we meet again, may you be well, may you be peaceful, and may you be free.